Hi everybody, Nicole from Hair of the Dog here, and I wanted to record a really quick video on how I like to edit silhouettes. Now, Lightroom is one of my favorite places for silhouettes, and you'll see why in just a moment. Now, in order to create a great silhouette, the one thing you really need to remember is you need to get down low. Because if you're standing up high and something's crossing, like the legs of the dog or the body of the dog, you're not going to be able to see much of the dog or the person per se. That it just loses its impact. So you really want a place where you can see the entire sky at ground level. So you can see the dog's entire legs and you can see the person's legs if they're standing up. You want to be able to see the whole entire picture, because when you do a proper silhouette, the person and the dog go completely black as well as the ground. So the only thing you really have is the sky. And then when you're exposing for your silhouette, you are simply exposing for the sky, and I like to even stop that sky down about a stop, which you can see here. And my person and my dog are already pretty black, but we're going to go ahead and make sure they're black here in just a minute. So I've jumped over to the Develop module here in Lightroom. You can see right here, if I click on this little triangle up here on my histogram, you can see where the actual true blacks are, and there's not a ton of it. Just for fun too, if you pull your shadows up, you can see how much information is retained in Lightroom. Now that's super noisy and I wouldn't want to print an image like that, but it's pretty remarkable. So anyway, we're going to pull that back down. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on this so that it stays lit up blue so I can see what is turning black. And I just clicked on this little triangle right up here on the left side of my histogram. I'm now going to go ahead and pull my blacks down, and you can see how that extends over lots of areas. Now, I don't want to pull them down too much because that starts to affect the sky. Do you see the sky starting to turn black? And it also starts to affect all of the transitions here. So pulling down to 100 is too much. So I will pull right about to here, about 31. And the way I chose that is because I can see the big bulk of it is getting blocked up, which is what I want for a silhouette, but it's not getting towards the edges yet. I don't want it to infringe on those edges. So I'll also pull the shadows down just a touch, and that actually fills in any of those areas in the middle. See quite the difference that it made there. Now if I pull the shadows down all the way, again, it's going to affect the sky. If I pull them up, it'll affect it too. So we'll pull it down right about there so we have nice solid color down here. So the reason that I do this is because all the adjustments that I'm going to make on that sky, I don't want them to affect any color in the dog or the grass or the human. So we're good now. I'm going to go ahead and unclick this so I can see what I'm doing again. And now I can go ahead and do a couple adjustments along the basic panel. I'm going to play with that white balance to see where I want it to be. I like it a touch more blue. And then I'm going to leave my exposure where it is. I'm going to maybe pull my highlights. I'm going to pull them down a little, but I'm going to pull my whites up a little bit. I'm just playing with it a little. All right, so that looks pretty good. I'm going to bump my clarity up. I'm going to bump my vibrance up. I usually don't go above 20 on either of those two options. And now here's where it starts to get fun. One of my favorite things to play with is right up here, my graduated filter. And it is this rectangle, this vertical rectangle right up here on the top in your adjustment brush areas. I'm going to go ahead and click on the top and bring that down. I already have a couple different settings here, which I don't want any of those. So I'm going to double click on effect and it takes it all back to 0. And then I can pull that blue down to make that sky even more of a pretty incredible dramatic blue. Maybe I'll pull the highlights back up so it doesn't get too dark. Also pull those whites up a little tiny bit. And maybe touch the dehaze. Just a little bit. The dehaze filter is very sensitive, so a little bit will do you there. I'm actually going to pull my exposure up just a touch. All right, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to click done. And now we have down here, the sun was just at the horizon. So we have this beautiful orange. We want to make that even more orange. So I'm going to pull a filter up from the bottom as well. And again, double click on effects. It still had my old settings. And then I'm going to go ahead and move the temperature over to the right to the yellow. See the difference that makes? Look, we can make it all blue, or we can really bring out that yellow. I don't know that I want to go all the way to 100. Maybe about 70. I make it kind of dramatic. It's really, really pretty because that's what it looked like in my head. You know, that's the beauty of being an artist, is we're able to recreate these images as how we saw them and how we felt that day viewing this image. So that's what I try to stay true to. I try to stay true to what the image looked like in my head that I was capturing in the camera. All right, and we're going to play with the highlights a little bit. I pull them up a touch. Lights up a touch, because that part of the sky will be brighter since it was closer to the sun. I'm going to do dehaze just a little tiny bit. And that's looking pretty good. All right, we're going to hit done. And then one last tweak. We can go right down here to our main panel in the develop module. We can go to the hue, saturation, luminance panel, and we can adjust really the luminance. The hue is adjusting the color. So the hue would be like a brick red versus a cherry red, where the saturation is the amount of that red color in the image. It just pumps up the color. And the luminance is all about adjusting the whiteness in the color or the lightness of the color. So I love to play with the luminance. So let's go ahead and we'll just do this little targeted adjustment tool right here, and we can kind of pull on the blues. You can see there's some blues and some aquas. We can see if we want to make it a little bit brighter or if we want to make it a little bit darker. I mean, I don't want to make it too dark, so I'm actually going to make it a smidge brighter. Then we can come down here to the oranges. We can make that brighter, or we can pull those a little bit darker. I think we're going to end up pulling them down a little tiny bit. And then if you want to see what you did, you can just click this little thing right here, this little box, and it turns it on and off. And you know what? I actually kind of like it before I did that. So I'm going to leave it off because do you see how it changes the clouds? It just made the clouds a little bit too dark, and those clouds were white. It was beautiful. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it there without any hue, saturation, luminance adjustments. So this is about it. The only other thing I do to this image is jump it over to Photoshop to remove that leash and remove this one grass that's underneath her chin and probably this one grass that's above the dog. But a quick spot healing tool will clean that right up, and this image will be ready to go. And then if we want to click on our before and after, we can click right down here on the left. You can see our before and after. So all of these colors were there. We just pulled them out with a little bit, playing a little bit with that white balance, with that graduated filter, and just playing a little bit with some of these sliders really pulls out the brilliance that I saw that evening capturing this image.